a year into it, I thought to myself, gosh, this was a ridiculous idea. They should never have funded this kind of idea. I took from that not all low-hanging fruit should be picked.
Welcome back to the Faculty Factory podcast. I'm Kim Skorupski. On today's H3 episode of the podcast, The Habits and Hacks from Hopkins, I'm so pleased to have Dr. Eric Strain. Hi, Eric. How are you?
Hey, Kim. Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so excited to have you. I know you and I have talked for lots of times over the past couple of years on very important things having to do with promotion and mentoring faculty. Wanted you to first start by telling people who you are and what you do here at Hopkins, and then lead us off into your habits and hacks.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me, and great to be on. And I'm a professor. I'm the George E. Bigelow Professor of Psychiatry at Hopkins, and been a professor for about 20 years now in the Department of Psychiatry at Hopkins. I lead a research group, the Behavioral Pharmacology Research Unit, or BPRU, which consists of 17 full-time faculty conducting research, mainly in addictions, although I like to say that what we do is we do rigorous research in the setting of collegiality. I'm also the executive vice chair of psychiatry on the Bayview campus, and I wear some other hats in the Department of Psychiatry. Like a lot of people at Hopkins, I do research, but I also have administrative roles, and I teach, and I do clinical work as well. I see outpatients, I attend on an inpatient service. So I kind of keep myself busy.
It sounds like the classic triple, quadruple threat, that it's a lot of balls in the air all the time, and that's what we do so well. So thank you for everything you do for us. And what kinds of efficiencies or routines have you adopted personally that have made you so successful over the past couple decades? And also maybe what do you tell junior faculty? What are you seeing that maybe the junior faculty folks listening out there might learn from?
It's a wide open question, and certainly let's make it a dialogue as we're going along, I'm sure. I think it's hard to know where to start, but I think one thing I would say is that early on, I did start to think about work-life balance. And of course, we all talk about that now and how do you achieve that. But I just remember early on in my career, my wife works full-time. We had 2 young kids, and our lives are just going crazy. I mean, the kids would come home, we'd be scrambling to make dinner. Kids were hungry, laundry needed to be done, all that stuff. And I actually, a few months into my faculty position, I said, this isn't working. And I started leaving on Monday and Friday at 3:00. And I think that's one of the great things about being in an academic setting is, a lot of times you can do something like that in the sense that I just said, I'm leaving. And I'd pick the kids up from school. They were in pre-primary, and I'd come home early and I'd start dinner and laundry. And it just sort of helped to decompress the day. Now, what I did was I started going into the office on Saturday mornings when my wife was home. And that probably was, maybe I should be home on Saturday mornings, but I was racked by guilt that I wasn't at work after 3:00 on Monday and Friday. But it really did help me feel a sense of relief early in my career that I wasn't overlooking this. And I walked out at 3:00, even though I knew there was stuff that I needed to do or I could do. It was just like, I need to leave. I need to do this because it was important. And I look back on that now. My kids are in their mid to late 20s, those 2 older kids, but I feel like it was really a valuable and sort of centering thing for me and for my family. And, I probably could have written some more papers early on. I probably could have gotten another grant in, but I think that was valuable.
It's making me think 2 things. So the first thing is when you said, well, maybe I should have been home on Saturday mornings. I'm thinking about the ages of children, and certainly like preteens, when kids want to sleep, seems like 20 hours a day, that they probably didn't even know you were gone on a Saturday morning unless they're having little kiddos, soccer practice and ballet and football and whatnot. But what you're making me think on one side of my brain is that work-life integration and the seasons of life will change, and having that fluid ability to adapt to the changing responsibilities and seasons of our family is good that you were able to do that. The other side of my brain is thinking about is if I'm a faculty member and a busy clinician, maybe my eyes just kind of exploded out of my face when you said, I just left. And they're thinking, well, how in the world did he just leave? Are you kidding me? That if I just got up and left on a Monday, Friday at 3:00, I can't imagine what my colleagues would say. How did he handle his clinic time? How was he charting, closing patient files? How did that operationally work to simply say, I'm out of here?
Yeah, no, I think those are both great points. And I think, it is sort of saying, I'm going to do this. And people might, my clinics tend to be in the mornings when I was doing, so I still have a clinic Friday mornings. And so Fridays were kind of crazy in the sense that I had to wrap up clinic, then take care of research things, and then get out by 3:00. There are those structural things that happen and that have to occur, and you can't just do it overnight. I mean, it takes a little time to bake it in terms of what's going on. But I think the biggest obstruction was in my own head in the sense of, gosh, everybody else is still here at 3:00 working. And people are going to see me walking out and know I'm leaving. And it's sort of like saying, to heck with that. I mean, if somebody wants to talk to me about that, that's fine, as long as I'm getting done what I need to get done. But let me morph this into a second point that I would make, Kim, if I could, which is, I think another thing I realized, like in the first year or two, was I figured out sort of the day-to-day where my sweet spots were in terms of getting work done. And one of the things that I realized is I'm a morning person. There's morning people and there's evening people, and I'm definitely a morning person. And I can write much better early in the morning and by the time 2:00 gets around, I'm like, I got to pound a couple of Diet Cokes to kind of, power me through the afternoon.
Right.
I often wake up at 5 a.m. and my fingers and my thoughts and my writing is so much better at 6 a.m. than at 2 or 3 p.m. Mm-hmm. So leaving in the afternoons was not disadvantaging me relative to the cycle of the day that I came to realize was my most productive. I was leaving when, it's probably terrible to say this, but my kids were getting me when I was at my nadir in terms of, my bandwidth on those days. And I was taking advantage because I was coming in early on those days.
Right.
And likewise, when I would go back in on Saturday mornings, I would go in early on Saturday mornings. So, and that brings up a third thing that actually has been relatively recent for me, but which I've realized, which is for years I would fall into the habit of staying up late on Friday, Saturday, maybe Sunday night, sleeping in on Saturday and Sunday morning somewhat, or sleeping less. And I'm really, in the last couple of years, gotten into this idea that I need to keep my sleep schedule the same every day. Mm-hmm. So even on, Saturday night or Sunday night or Friday night, I go to bed around 9 or 9:30, which is the time I go to bed during the week. Mm-hmm. And I still get up early on Saturday or Sunday morning. But I think, that's another strategy. And then, I could pause there, but there's something else I would just say.
Yeah, hang on to that thought because, of course, I have to open my mouth and yammer here because I'm exactly the same way. My friends make fun of me that they always say, oh, Kim, I was going to call you and tell you about this show or that show, but then I realized it was 9:00 and you're already in bed. And that's me as well. And I think what gets to that is the self-awareness. And in for example, in our leadership courses that we in faculty development teach, and anytime we work with faculty, we really try to drive home the fundamental point of leadership programs. It starts with self-awareness and self-knowledge. And that's so important because you have to know yourself to better manage yourself. And then once you get that going, you can better know other people and know how to manage those relationships. Because I think so many of us, especially when we're younger, we think that I ought to, should to, must be, and we have these maybe mistaken assumptions about what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. Just like you alluded to or said earlier about you're a morning person. If your mentor was a late night owl and you studied with her and that's how she worked, or your mom and dad were morning people, we kind of feel like that's the way one must be, disregarding the fact that I'm a morning person and I'm trying to force myself into this night owl thing and I'm just not being efficient. Like you said, come afternoon, you're punked out. I'm the same way. I'm ready for a little, cat nap. So that awareness of where your strengths, where our own strengths are and what our natural biorhythms and the circadian, and figuring out when we are at our maximum peak, and then structuring our day as best we can around those bursts of energy and when we are most focused to do writing in the morning, and then in the afternoons do kind of mindless, monotonous work for people like us. So that to me is what popped into my head that is so important, especially for younger, early career faculty who maybe are still in that rhythm of school and training programs and other people dictating how they should work, versus taking a look at what works best for me and then overlay that with what works best for my family in this stage.
Absolutely. No, I completely get it. And I think that, let me also parenthetically note, I think that your being a morning person makes, that obviously you're a gifted and talented person, because morning people are. And, I fully appreciate that, even more. But no, I mean, I've got a mentee right now, and we've talked about this early career person who is an evening person. And, in my being aware now of her, her having that quality. So, when I suggest that we meet at 8 a.m.,
no way.
I know that's a mistake for her.
Right.
But let me also, there's something else I would say in terms of sort of that being aware of yourself and your rhythms and your strengths and, those features. Another thing I've thought about, and I'm certainly not pushing this on anybody, but I realized as well early on, there were three things that kept me relatively centered as a person. One was not drinking alcohol to excess, and being very careful about my alcohol use, because, again, it would screw up my sleep, I realized, and everybody knows that or probably knows that. The second was having some regularity in an exercise program of some sort. And that was more sort of stress relieving. I mean, it's physical health, of course, and as I've gotten older, I mean, it's not necessarily powerlifting or something like that. It can even be just, going for a walk for 30 minutes or something in the day or in the evening. And the third was going to church for me. And I think that related to sort of some need for a spiritual aspect, and also for the community that it created. Because I do think, I tell my wife all the time, I'm a friendly misanthrope. I mean, I don't want to be around other people. But if I am with other people, I tend to be kind of friendly with them. I don't think...
I tend to be non-horrible.
I'm not grumpy. And going to church each week caused me to be around people who likewise were generally friendly. And it sort of also kept some balance in my life in terms of, pausing for an hour and thinking about, more than just getting a grant application in or something like that, to get outside my own sort of needs and wants. So those three things: being careful. I don't abstain from alcohol. I mean, I drink a beer at an Orioles game or something, but being very careful about my alcohol use, exercising with some regularity, being engaged in something that got me tapped into my sort of other things besides myself, and being aware of sort of a bigger purpose and meaning to the world, and in a community setting were helpful for me.
I'm with you on that. Amen. You're preaching to the choir on the faith thing. I couldn't do anything without my faith. Nothing. Could you talk to us a little bit more about, Through your career, seeing these early career faculty, have you seen any trends or patterns, or there have been some silver linings, after all the awfulness of 2020? And I think a lot of the self-reflection has been really front and center in my conversations with people. But do you have any observations, Dr. Strain, about early career faculty and maybe advice you would have of be careful about, in addition to the things you've obviously talked about, but be careful, or you're worried about, or you think about, or keeping you up at night? What kind of special things can we impart to early career folks out there?
Yeah, you mean in specifically in the current climate of COVID and social unrest and things like that? Is that it, or just more generally?
Well, either way. I think generally or more specific about the current times. I've just been writing we have here at Hopkins a task force that's been looking at the impact of COVID on faculty careers. And so I'm just reflecting on the introduction that was my assignment to write. And, we think about the fact that COVID has certainly done changed and upended a lot of things for faculty, but it's also amplified a lot of existing challenges. Funding has never been more difficult, and the increased complexity with submitting a grant application and all the paperwork. And then you think about uploading manuscripts, for crying out loud. To me, that's like a half a day job to go to these journal websites and upload the thing. You feel like you're doing all the editing for them, and doing all that work. It's not trivial, the amount of administrative tasks that faculty have to do. So these problems have been around for a long time with, EPIC, electronic health records, and RVUs and grants and papers and teaching. And now you just throw on top of it a global pandemic. So I'm thinking of, the existing problems, and then you talk about salaries at, Hopkins and our woefully inadequate salaries. There have been a lot of problems and challenges. And, a lot of us are worried about COVID kind of really kicking us in the pants and our future generation of investigators. So I guess I'm just unfortunately unloading on you what's been on my mind last night writing this introduction, and just curious about what you're seeing in your department in psychiatry and working with all the faculty that you mentor.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful, and I feel for you in terms of you're considering all this and the impact of it. I think, one of the thoughts that comes to mind is mentorship. And I think a lot about mentorship in the sense that, both process and content mentorship. And I think it's been interesting over the last, 10 or 15 years, because a lot of my mentoring has shifted away from content to process mentoring with junior faculty, which I think makes sense given my sort of role. One of the things, and so I think the message would be, finding a mentor that works for you is so critical. And, by way of example, just something that flashed through my head as you were talking is, I tell all my junior faculty that I mentor, regardless of whether I'm meeting with them weekly or monthly or quarterly or semi-annually, whatever, I tell them people at Hopkins are going to ask you to do things, especially the clinicians. They're going to ask you to be on committees or to interview applicants for something or, whatever, do some, side clinical thing on a temporary basis. And I tell them, and a lot of these things are going to be very attractive to you. And what you have to tell them is but some of them aren't. Some of them you aren't going to want to do it. I say, regardless, what you are to tell the person is that sounds really interesting and I'm very intrigued. But before I can agree to do anything, I have to go to Eric Strain and ask him if it's okay to do it. And then you come to me and I'll tell you, no, you can't do that. That's going to distract you from what you need to be doing, your core foci. Yeah. And then you go back to them and say, listen, I really wanted to do it, but Eric told me I couldn't. And he said, if you've got a problem, to go talk to Eric. Right.
It buys you some physical space and some time to think without, like you said, making an impulsive decision that, that sounds so good, but it's going to really pull you off course. I love that you've you volunteer yourself to be the sacrificial lamb for the faculty.
Well, and guess how many times I've had another senior faculty come to me and say, hey, I want to talk to you about, this thing I wanted this junior person to do. Zero. Nobody's ever, nobody ever comes to me and says, hey, I want to push back on this.
Right, of course.
But, so I think that goes back to, though, the idea that you gotta find a mentor and you've got to find somebody who's going to be your wingman or wingwoman and protect you and kind of keep you reeled back in, because it's so easy to get distracted with other things. And mentor, I'm sure, you could do like a lot of podcasts about mentorship and the qualities of mentorship and stuff. But, I think it's really key. I think we as an institution need to be vigilant to making sure that we've got good mentoring plans in place.
That's right. For
junior faculty who are coming on. And I think the dilemma is that our response to that too often is, well, we're going to develop a new form or a new procedure or something like that. And at the end of the day, those aren't the things that create good mentors. Good mentors are people who are committed to it, who are good at it. And we need to just say, gee, this person's really good at mentoring, like George Bigelow, who got the Dean's Mentoring Award a couple of years ago. This is somebody who's really gifted at this, and we need to make sure that we keep them, we nurture them, we reward them for what they're doing.
I like what you just said.
Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, I love the soapbox. I love the mentoring soapbox. That you're exactly right. They're good people, and that if you think about it, there are a few really good gems of mentors, but then the number of mentees outweighs them. And then there's this whole imbalance of so many mentees clamoring for good mentors, and the really good ones are overwhelmed, overloaded. They too have the same responsibility of generating income and seeing patients and serving on committees and teaching and educating. And then if they're not acknowledged, that work, that incredibly valuable work of mentoring, not acknowledged, rewarded, protected, it becomes this, this game where the return on investment at some point is like, can be hurtful to the mentor. So there's always that delicate balance of trying to find that balance. And then I feel badly for not only early career faculty who are looking for that mentor, and that's when we also kind of emphasize you need a team of mentors. Don't put all your eggs in the one mentor basket. So you mentioned earlier, Eric, the content mentor, the process mentor, peer mentors, promotions mentor, my writing mentor, my work-life engagement mentor. So we can have teams of people who can add wisdom and neutral advice and a third set of eyes on things when things get crazy. I think the team, a diverse team of mentors, can help kind of carry that burden so you're not all on one mentor. And so I think that helps the mentor as well as the mentee, knowing that there's a lift. People are lifting the mentee. A lot of hands are lifting the mentee, not just that one mentor. Right.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think there's a lot to that. And I think as well, and people have written about this, that, what you find that you're gravitating towards certain people more than other people as your mentor, that there's a fit there. And the fit may not be related to content expertise necessarily, right, even though you initially thought that's why you were seeking out that person.
Yeah. And then the mentorship relationship grows, and if it's a transformational relationship that's authentic, that it will grow with you over the season of your academic career, just like we all grow, and all of our relationships grow. Some relationships may break up, some may evolve and transition from, as you said, the content expert, and now you've written that grant and written those papers, and now you've truly developed an authentic, friendly relationship, and now you're more collegial and collaborators, and now it's moved into a different phase of a mentoring relationship. So that's truly a transformational, authentic relationship that can withstand the whole career continuum, because we will change and our opportunities and our interests. And as we take on different responsibilities, we'll grow and evolve into wanting different mentors for different reasons.
Yeah. But there were a couple of other thoughts I had that,
Go ahead.
If I could kind of pivot. One is, I would say, one of the things that I realized probably about 10 years into my career was, as a faculty member, was that I should do things that I wanted to do. And specifically, what brought this home was there was a request for applications for grants that was a really goofy idea at the time, but it looked like such an easy way to get an R01. And I already had an R01 at that time, but I just couldn't pass it by. And I submitted something, and it did well, and it got funded. And I spent 4 years doing something that a year into it, I thought to myself, gosh, this was a ridiculous idea. They should never have funded this kind of idea. But now I'm into it. I've got the money. I've got the staff. I've got the project going. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to do this again, because I've wasted time, effort, bandwidth, money as well on something that's really not, it's not something that I really feel good about. It's not gotten me excited.
Right.
Yeah. And, I'm going to do things that I want to do. And obviously, I mean, if you're into a situation where, you've got to find $1 to cover your salary and stuff like that, you get desperate. But by and large, I think, I took from that not all low-hanging fruit should be picked. And I think kind of hand in hand with that, I've been thinking a lot lately about meaning and purpose, and that, we have to have meaning and purpose in our lives. I think a lot of us in academic settings have that, but you need to kind of keep yourself focused on that, or I need to for myself, I should say.
Right.
That I need to feel like I'm doing something that's got meaning and purpose to it, that I'm not simply, trying to cover the budget or, get my epic notes done or something like that.
That's good. I think ending on meaning and purpose is perfect, because I was also just thinking about late career faculty members and how, as we start thinking about the tail end of our careers, how making that transition to the next step of partial retirement, what's the next chapter of my life going to look like? That's the question then. Oh my gosh, if I'm not a professor, if I'm not a clinician, if I'm not a surgeon, who am I? What am I? What do I do? What is my purpose and meaning and value? So that question of who am I and why am I here, I think is just the question that from the beginning all the way into the end. So I think I love how you keep that front and center, that we do the things we love. And the things we love are usually the things that we're gifted to do, that it's in our heart for a reason. So it just makes perfect sense to align what we love to do with as much of our daily lives as we can manage doing those things we love. Otherwise, we'll run the risk of burning out if we keep living like we're on fire, especially living like on fire, doing things we don't like. It's, a recipe for disaster. So I think that is a wonderful way to end. And Dr. Eric Strain, I really thank you, folks. I hope you have learned a lot from our friendly misanthrope, Dr. Eric Strain here at Hopkins. And I'll let you have the final word, Eric.
Well, no, Kim, thanks. I want to thank you. I want to thank the listeners of these podcasts. I've listened to a few of them. They're wonderful to hear. And I hope this has been valuable. Go out, find meaning and purpose, structure your days as are best for you, and have a wonderful rest of your day, Kim. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody. Tune into the Faculty Factory podcast next time. Bye now. Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. The mission of the Faculty Factory is to build and support a community of leaders in faculty development who share tools, resources, wisdom, and encouragement in service to our faculty members, schools, and institutions. We encourage you to go to facultyfactory.org to find out more. Get in touch with me, ask me any questions. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. We'll see you next time. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine Office of Faculty. For more information, visit facultyfactory.org.